If you like what you're watching, please subscribe to my channel and share with your friends. Hello all, it's Matt Ross from Simple Strength Training here again. How you all going? So this is my week 3 diary, sitting about 3 weeks out from the CAPO event at 618 Barbell and 6 weeks out from the GPC event at Southern Strength and Conditioning. All right, this week sees my training schedule back to pretty much normal with no real interruptions. Back to training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm still hitting all my numbers as planned, which is good. Pretty happy with that. I'm benching 3 times per week. I find that benching 3 times a week is working well for me through this program. Like I said last week, I stepped it up to see if I'd made a difference from my previous peaking program that I did for my first event, and it seems to be coming along pretty good. My deadlifts are moving along pretty good. I'm still hitting my numbers there as well, and I think I'm finding the groove with my new technique change. It seems to be moving a lot smoother and quicker, and I seem to be finding the position a lot easier now. My squatting numbers are still being hit. It all feels a little bit different to me at the moment, because I'm not squatting 3 times a week like I was in my previous peaking program, and that seems to be, for some reason, either whether it's psychological or an actual physical thing, it just feels a bit tougher, but that once again might be purely psychological. The main difference is because I was doing my volume work, my heavy work, and a light day on 3 separate days, whereas now I've sort of incorporated my heavy lift and my volume work onto the same day, which in a later diary I'll go into a bit more on my leg day, whereas today you'll find out I'm going into day 1 a bit further down. I've also been trying to, throughout the peaking program, working on my bracing techniques. I've been watching a few videos of people who've been around a while and been really successful either in strongman or in powerlifting, talking about bracing and how they brace to get the most out of their lifts and stuff, that sort of stuff. And I've been working on that throughout this peaking program as well, trying to get it right. It sort of feels like it's going pretty good with the deadlift, but not as great with the squat. Once again, it doesn't feel like shit with the squat, and it does with the squat, and it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything real bad or anything like that, really bad or horrible. It just feels like it could be better. That's all. And once again, that could be just a head thing also, something just stuck in the head. You know, they get in your head, it swirls around, makes you think things aren't what they are. It really just pisses you off, pretty much. I've also, in the prep, whether once again this is an actual brain thing or a physical thing, I've been trying to hold off on using my lifting belt as much as possible, just to see if that helps with me psychologically and or physically when it comes to lifting the heavier weights when I get up to them. But I think it seems to be helping. It seems to be helping with my squat. When I get under the squat bar and I'm lifting my heavy reps, when I step it out from the rack, it doesn't feel as intimidating as it used to before in that sense. And it's a technique that a lot of people use. They hold off on using the belt until they get to their actual weight. Probably wouldn't recommend it if you are still learning to lift and learning to lift heavy. I would stick with using the belt. So you get used to using the belt and you get used to the feel of the belt, more so because you don't want that sort of feeling to throw you off when you get to your working weight and your heavy weight. I've been using the belt for a fair while now, over the last couple of years. So I'm sort of pretty used to it. So it doesn't throw me off when I get to my working weight, especially with the squats. And with the deadlifts, also the same. I have the same thing. It doesn't really throw me off. I also this week dropped into Fuzzies to get some physio work done. Can't think of anyone really who's better to go and see, as he has the lifting credentials to go with it. Amazing lifting credentials throughout his career in lifting, in the powerlifting world. And he's also a physiotherapist. He gave me some good exercises to do for a few problems that I went and seen him for. He zeroed in on the problems fast, other than a seagull to a loose chip. Yeah, it was really good, and it helped. And I've got a feeling it's going to help me out a lot, especially with some rotator work and some upper mid back area work. So that was pretty good. So that basically is my week as far as the diary goes. No real news or big news stories to talk about other than what I've already mentioned. So that brings us to just going through what I do on day one of my working training week. And that is an upper day. You could call it a chest day, a push-pull day, a bench day, whatever day you prefer to call this sort of thing. I just call it an upper body day. I basically start off with a bit of a warm-up. My warm-up probably takes a bit longer than most do, usually because I train early in the morning. And as I'm slowly becoming one of those old codgers, everything's getting a bit more creakier and a bit more tight and a bit more stiffer when I get up in the morning. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes not in a great, sometimes not in a good way. I feel like I just need to make sure my body's moving pretty freely by the time I get to start lifting weights or heavy weights and that. So I'd rather avoid if it means an extra 10 or 15 minutes for me in the morning beforehand, making sure I avoid that injury, then I'm quite happy to do it. Some people sort of don't agree with a long warm-up. They reckon some people think it takes just keeps you in the gym a bit longer. I do agree with that in the sense that if you've been out moving around and doing a lot of stuff throughout the day and that sort of stuff, or through the morning and you're training mid-morning or something, you probably don't need as much warming up, but I'd rather just play it safe for myself and just ensure that I don't get an injury. So I basically do my warm-up. I do my comp bench lift first, and that's a heavy one. At the moment, it's sitting at about 90% of my 1 rep max, 2/3 of the way through, just over halfway through my prepping program. And that's sort of in the area now where I'm moving from sets of my a heavy triple or a heavy set of 3 to a heavy 2. That was supposed to actually happen this week. The weight was moving really well and really smooth, and felt like it was moving pretty easy. So I did a 3rd rep, and that one moved pretty good. So I was pretty happy with that. And I left it at 3. I didn't want to push it too much, as I don't want to build up too much fatigue throughout the week, because you got to take them sort of things into consideration. The more you do in each workout day, all adds up through the week as well. It's not just one workout, fatigue for one workout. You've got to take into consideration the fatigue for the whole week. So that was pretty good. Then I move on to my volume bench, which is changed from 5x5s to 6x3s this week. And that's probably sitting at about 80% of my 1 rep max. But once again, the weight was moving really good. So I did 5x5s. It didn't feel particularly hard or anything at the moment, so that'll be pretty good. We'll definitely drop it back to the 6x3s and heavy doubles for next week. As once again, I don't want that accumulated fatigue to start wearing me down too much as I work through the peaking program. At the moment, I haven't actually felt like I've needed a deload yet, so that's pretty good. That's why I'm trying to keep it that way. The floor press is what I do next, and that's a mid-range strength exercise for my bench. As I mentioned a few last week, I think it was, or in the first diary, that I seem to be having a little bit of trouble in the mid-range area of my bench press when the weights get heavy. I don't seem to have a lot of trouble with getting the weight off my chest, but it's about that 3 inches, 2 or 3 inches above my chest. When it starts getting heavy, I just have a bit of trouble pushing through that middle area to the top for lockout. So the floor press is one of those exercises that you use for that. I also mentioned I haven't actually done this one before, so it's a bit of a learning curve for me. So I started off with the first 2 or 3 weeks of doing it reasonably light, sets of 8 across. I'm starting to move the weight up now. I just found that I've got up to a point where I started failing my 2nd and 3rd set of 8, so getting only 7 reps there. So I'm going to knock the weight up a little bit more, but drop it back to reps of 6 for the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And then for the last couple of weeks, I'll drop it back there, push the weight up a little more again. and move into sets of 4 for those. It feels like it's actually working pretty good. I feel pretty strong with the bench, and incorporating this seems like it's helping me a bit. And that could be as well as because I've started benching 3 days a week, and that could be helping also because I've arranged that my benching 3 days a week in the sense that it's following a linear progression on my heavy days and on each workout, the weight going up in some form of linear progression or a double progression, depending on which day it is. But it's sort of organised in a heavy, light, medium fashion where my heavy day is today. We're working with my volume day. My light day is a bench variation, in this case, which you'll find out a bit more, but it's basically just an incline, narrow grip incline press for higher reps set across. And then my third day is a medium day, which is pretty much at the same weight as my volume day, but without the pause, and I just bench normal without the without practicing waiting for the press command when the bar's on your chest. Because as most people know that do the powerlifting competitions, you have to follow some commands. Basically how it works is take the bar out of the rack. Some federations say have a starting command, some don't. Either way, once you take the bar down to your chest, the bar has to come to a stop on your chest or touching your chest, at which point you have to wait for the press command, and when that's given, you press the bar up till your arms are locked out, and then they'll give you a rack command, and once you've proven that you've pressed the weight to lock out and you've got control of it, they say rack and you rack the weight. So I practice waiting for that press command on my heavy day. The other days I don't worry about it, as they're different sort of styles. So that third day, which is the medium day, is my volume weight, but done as normal bench pressing, pretty much 0 to no pause at the bottom, 1 second down, 1 second up sort of pressing. That I move on to some back work, some pull work. I do this to help balance out the pressing work, as you just want to sort of keep some of each in there as you work through your programs. Some people recommend a 1-to-1 ratio. For every press movement, you do a pull movement. And for every vertical pull, you do a horizontal pull as well. So maybe as you get more advanced, that might be more necessary. Maybe it's a good thing to follow from when you start. It certainly not going to hurt if you try and do that. It doesn't have to be in perfect balance, but around about is usually probably a good rule of thumb, and it won't hurt you in any way. Mine's probably nowhere near that 1-to-1 ratio, as I'm sort of working towards a powerlifting comp, and that's predominantly pressing. I still do incorporate a fair bit of it, as much as I can. In this case, I do some vertical pulling in assisted chin-ups. I'm not great at them, so I have to do them assisted. At the moment, I'm using bands because that's what I've got at my place in my gym. I'm on a big, thick green band at the moment, which is the heaviest single band, and I'm working towards hitting 15 reps in 3 sets. And I'm just trying to progress that up to hitting 24 in 3 sets. So I'm aiming for 15, then 18, then 21, then 24. No set number of reps in each set, but just as total reps across 3 sets. Once I've done those 3 sets, just to add a bit more pulling in, I do some body weight rows where you basically put the barbell on the rack, lay underneath it, grab onto it, and pull your body weight up to the bar. And I just add them in, so I end up doing about 5 sets of pulling. And it's sort of a little bit of a combination of vertical and horizontal pulling. And I do those 2 sets of those body weight rows to failure. And to finish off, I do some accessory work there. I do some shoulder pressing and some lying tricep extensions or skull crushers or whatever fancy name you want to come up with them for. I do them rest pause style just as a time factor, because the bench pressing at the start takes up a fair bit of time in my workout. I focus on that because that's what I'm trying to work towards with the powerlifting competition. So for the sake of specificity, if I got that word right, English might not be my first language. I spend a fair bit of time on that leading up to the powerlifting competition. So to balance out that time, I do rest pause work at the end with some of my accessory work. In this case, I do a dumbbell shoulder press. I use a 1 minute rest pause system there, which I think I mentioned his name before, Dr. Christensen is his name. So you do your first set to failure, and then the second set, your aim is to get half the reps you got in your first set. If you do, the weight goes up. If you don't, you leave the weight where it is the next time you come in. And I just find that helps still work in some good shoulder work, as well as gives you a bit of max effort work also, but not at really fatiguing or draining levels. So you still feel like you're getting in some good work. And then I do some lying tricep extensions. These are done rest pause style as well, but I do them following the dog crap method or Dante Trudell's method, depending on which one you want to call it. And that's just a 30-second rest pause where you do your first set to failure, you rest 30 seconds, you do your second set, you rest 30 seconds, and you do a third set. You only do the 3 sets. General way of doing this is you just add up all 3 sets, and if you've hit a certain amount of reps, you go up in weight. If you haven't, you stay the same weight for the next one. For me, I use 2 different methods. I vary it across just to keep it that a bit varied as well. Sometimes the aim is to get 15 reps in my first set, and other times I look for a total of 15 reps. As I'm trying to move towards heavier work, in this case, I just keep it as a total of 15 reps across all 3 sets. So there's not as much volume as you would say with that, but it still feels like a big effort to lift. It's more effort to lift the heavier weight, which sort of also helps physically prepare me mentally for grinding through heavy lifts and that when it comes time for my max efforts. So a peaking program, what is one and why do we do it? So a peaking program is usually part of a bigger plan, and at the tail end of that plan as you get ready for a powerlifting meet. It's something that physically, mentally, and neurologically prepares your body for lifting heavier weights. And I mean physically wise, your muscles, your joints, all your connective tissue, all that sort of stuff. Gets them physically ready by experiencing the heavier weights. Gets you mentally ready by experiencing what it's like for your body to go through the process of lifting those heavier weights, taking it out of the rack and all that sort of stuff. And neurologically by bringing all those things together and letting your body work as one system. Peaking program is pretty much like the end part of planning your holiday. When you first plan a holiday, you sit down, you decide where you're going to go, when you're going to go, how long you're going for, how much money you're going to take, what time of the year you're going to go, all them sort of things. You would say that the peaking program, as far as a holiday plan goes, is those little finer details where you plan out the individual days, you ring up places to make sure they're open when you're there. Tours, things like that, all those little things that go into making a holiday really, really enjoyable. So when you plan your holiday and you want to get the most reward and fun, all those little details and the most enjoyment out of your holiday, a peaking program is that part of the lifting program. So when you get to the powerlifting meet, you're ready to do your best effort. You're ready to get the most reward for all the training you've done out of that day. Now, in saying that, there's always those little things that you've got no control over, like the weather and that sort of stuff when you're on a holiday. And with a peaking program, that can be your health. You could just feel off one day, have a bad night's sleep, catch a bug, anything like that. But regardless of any of that, if you've done the work beforehand, you've prepared yourself to do as good a job as you can on your day. The same with your holiday. You're prepared to do for it to be as smooth and as fun as you can make it, without because you can't take into consideration things that are beyond your control. In saying that, there's lots of ways to run one. You can run a linear version. For me, there's 2 different types of the linear version. There's one where you start from a previously established 1RM and you work your numbers back from that over a certain period of time, or you pick some target weights, which is a really old school way of doing it, and you do to follow the same basically progression to work up to that weight. There's heavy, light, medium, which I think, as an example, Juggernaut Systems use that for the intermediate and more advanced lifters. Don't take me for granted on that. That's just my basic understanding of how they do it. It's a very successful way of doing it, and if you prefer doing it that way, have at it. Westside works on the premise that they're pretty much ready to do a powerlifting meet whenever you want. That's not exactly right, but they work on max effort days. So they have a max effort day once a week where they lift as heavy as they can and do a 1 rep test or a 2 rep test on that day. The way they get around it, what they do to ensure that you don't physically wear out your body by doing one lift all the time, they change the stimulus to the body by varying the lifts. So one week you might do a low bar back squat as heavy as you can. The next week it might be a front bar squat, a front squat. Both of them take a lot of effort. Mentally, you have to grind through that hard lift, push hard to lift that heavy weight, but the toll it takes physically on your body are different, seeing as how there's no way that you can front squat as much as you can low bar back squat. There might be exceptions to that case for different people, but as a general rule, that's the case. But they all incorporate one thing, and that's trying to make sure you're ready to lift maximal weights on that one day that you're preparing for. I'm doing a linear style where I've picked some target weights and working up to that weight. So what that basically entails is, as an example, if your target weight was 100 kilos, just to keep the numbers easy, to coincide with 100%, and you had 10 weeks to prepare, you'd sort of work up to, say, about a 96% effort on your last week before your lifting meet. So therefore, you'd start at about 78% of your 1 rep max, or your target weight in this case, and then increment by about 2% each week, and then adjusting your sets and reps as you went. So you'd probably start with 5 sets of 5, say, for squats in the first week, and then by the time you got to the 10th week where you're operating at 96%, you'd be doing three sets of singles. Yeah, so that's basically how that works, and that's the program that I'm using to get myself ready. Like I said earlier, there's lots of ways to skin the cat, the lifting cat, or the peaking program cat in this case. If you train yourself, my probably advice is, if you haven't done a lot of powerlifting meets and you're training yourself, try some different ones to see which one works best for you. I'm varying mine from last time by making it a little bit longer and adjusting like I said earlier, my bench from twice a week to 3 times a week, and incorporating some different styles of ways of training to see what that gives me. You can take the guesswork out of it completely, and this is probably a great way to do it, really, and that's get yourself a coach. They'll basically get you on the right path if you find a good coach, and they'll find a program that works best for you, because that's what good coaches do. There are different training styles at work, of course, and if you don't like one, find one that works. Everyone's a bit different. Sometimes some people might use the same peaking program for their entire lifting career because it works for them. And that's what I would say to you. If you find something that works well and gets the job done for you, there's no need to change. Just stick with it. You can always try some different things to see if you can tweak it and make it better. Or if you want, you can try a completely different program to see if it works better than other ones. But what I will say, if you find something that works, stick with it. And that brings us to, why am I doing a powerlifting competition? For me, basically, it's just so I have a goal, a target, something to reach for, something to aim for. Plus, there's also that I'm a boy and I like to lift heavy things. I find that the process is for me, the process of getting there is just as rewarding as the event itself. I enjoy training. Since I started my journey through the last 10 years, I found that I really enjoy training, and it's become part of my life. So for me, the process is just as enjoyable as the actual event itself. And I find having a goal helps with your motivation to get out and actually train. Would I still be training if I didn't have a goal? Most definitely. But I find that it helps keep your mind focused on something while you're training, rather than just feeling like you're going through motions. Although I'd still be getting the enjoyment out of training that I would normally get out of it. I find that having a goal helps me stay motivated and stay excited about getting in there. You're not always going to be excited and motivated or feeling like you want to go and train, but on the overall experience, for me, it helps me stay on track, helps me keep going, helps me stick to my other plans for my life of staying healthy, eating properly, those sort of things. It has a lot of kick-on effects for me. And that's generally what I find for most other people as well. When they have a plan in place to get them from one point to another, or it's not just that plan that's successful, it has a lot of kick-on events from it, especially when you're talking about fitness programs. If you're sitting there and you want to be a bodybuilder and you're planning to be into a competition, a lot of those plans, they have kick-on, they have side effects as well as getting jacked and looking muscly and strong and all that sort of stuff. You learn how to plan out eating habits, you learn about yourself, you learn about willpower, you learn about where your limits are and what your limits aren't. Has a lot of other things that work into your life that tell you a lot about yourself. But for me, I've also found that it's a great community. The powerlifting people, I'm not too sure about what it's like at like the elite level or like all the boys that do it professionally or anything like that, but at a local level and an amateur level, everyone's really, really friendly, really, really supportive, and it's amazing to be a part of things like that when you find groups like that. And it's like that with a lot of sporting clubs, and that's why a lot of people do them. And for me, because I like to lift, powerlifting seems like a great place to do it. And the people that I've met so far, they've been absolutely wonderful. Like I said, BJ at 618, Fuzzy, the people down at Southern Strength and Conditioning. So far, all the people that I've met while I've been lifting, you meet so many different people. It's unbelievable. I can't say how much I enjoyed it at the moment. That might change in the future, but at the moment, it's a really fun experience for me. So I'm going to milk it for all I can, for as long as I can. And that's about the week for me. So I'm also going to do another podcast that's not so much to do with what I am actually doing as far as this preparing for this lifting comp is going. I'm going to try and work in another podcast or probably YouTube thing once a week or once every other week. The one that I'm going to do now will be my 4 secrets to having a successful training program. Yes, the big secrets. They're amazing. You know, I'm pretty sure you probably never heard of them before, and if you weren't guessing, that's sarcasm, because I'm pretty sure you have. They won't be any different to anyone else that's reputable, any other reputable person that you've ever heard talk about it or the subject. But if you'd like to tune in and have a bit of a listen, look out for it. So have fun staying strong for life, people, and I'll see you next time.